Yes. All right. Yeah, sure. Don't let me get away. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council public meeting on Tuesday, November 21st at 7:30. I just want to start off by kind of letting people know we have a pretty good crowd here tonight. So letting people know what to expect in this meeting. This is a council public meeting. So generally speaking, we are not making any decisions here tonight. The reason that we're here this evening primarily is under the Planning Act. This is a legislated meeting, and the primary purpose of this meeting is to collect input from residents and from council about a given development application. So what will happen is we'll have a presentation by the developer that they'll outline the development application. We will have a presentation by our staff outlining some of the aspects of the development application. And then we will bring it to you folks, to anybody that wants to speak, can speak. We do have a few people that are signed up already to speak, but anybody that's in the chamber here that would like to come up and speak about this application is welcome to do so. And we'll do that until everybody is finished. And then after that, we'll bring it back to council. We'll make some comments from us here on council. And then all of those comments will be sent back to our staff. The staff will use those comments in the rest of the process, which this is just the very beginning of this application process. Bring it back to staff. They'll use all those comments in determining what to do as a next step and any modifications that they would recommend. And then ultimately, at the end of that process, something will come to council for either approval or not, and we'll deal with it from there. Okay, so have I made that abundantly clear? Everybody's totally understanding what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm seeing smiles. So either you're really, really polite or I did a good job. I'm not sure which, maybe both. Okay, so there's a council public hearing statement. So if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the city of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of city council to the local planning appeal tribunal and may be added and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So with that being said, I'll call this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion for that? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing nobody is pecuniary interested. And scheduled business. So we have one item today or tonight that is request for comments, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application for 8868 Yonge Street in Richmond Hill. So I would like to now call upon the a presentation from the applicant. Mr. Clerk, who would that be? Oh, I see somebody standing. Okay. Oh, those, I'm sorry, you're right. Let's start with, I was just testing to make sure everybody was paying attention. So Ferdy from our planning staff will start and then we'll have the applicant after that.
You put the, okay, thanks.
Welcome, Mr. Taniolo.
Thank you. Just making sure, that's all. Good evening, Mayor West, members of council and members of the public. Tonight's agenda item involves proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications by Collective 8868 Yonge LP for lands municipally known as 8868 Yonge Street. The subject property is located at the southwest corner of Westwood Lane and Rosewater Street and has a lot area of approximately 0.58 hectares or 1.44 acres. The lands are currently vacant with trees scattered along the perimeter. Next slide, please. The property abuts single-family residential to the west and north along Westwood Lane, existing commercial to the north of Westwood Lane along Yonge Street. There are three 15-story mixed-use apartment buildings immediately to the east of Rosewater Street and Sunnywood Park to the south. The property is designated neighborhood under the official plan, which permits low and medium density residential uses. However, in accordance with Ontario Municipal Board decision rendered in 2016, an 8-story retirement residence with a site density of approximately 2.64 FSI or floor space index is permitted on the property. With the adoption of the Richmond Hill Secondary Plan in May of this year, the properties within the lands comprising the secondary plan. The secondary plan was subsequently approved by York Region on October 11th of 2023 with minor modifications. It is noted that 2 appeals have since been received, including an appeal by the owner of the subject property. Next slide, please. The property is subject to Chapter 6 of the official plan, which refers to the 2016 OMB decision to permit 2 15-story buildings and an 8-story retirement residence with an overall density of 3.05 floor space index, or a floor space index of 2.64 if you translate it to the property itself. The property is located within the West of Yonge character area under the secondary plan, which is an area that is characterized by mid and high-rise mixed-use developments that provide for appropriate transitions to the existing community. For planning context, the West of Yonge character area permits an average built-out density ranging between 2 and 3 floor space index. Next slide, please. In terms of zoning, the lands are zoned multiple residential 10 pursuant to bylaw 2523 as amended by Ontario Municipal Board approved zoning bylaw 7-16 with site-specific development standards to facilitate the construction of the 8-story retirement residence. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the proposed site plan. The applicant is proposing to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit a high-density residential development on its land holdings. The proposed development is to be comprised of a 14-story apartment building with 431 dwelling units, a floor space index of 4.82, and 3 levels of underground parking. Pedestrian access to the building is proposed from the southwest corner of Westwood Lane and Rosewater Street, with vehicular access for parking and loading coming from the west end of the building off of Westwood Lane. Next slide, please. Okay, this next slide shows the proposed building renderings from various viewing angles around the property. Proposed building will step back from the west and north property lines. Next slide, please. The purpose of staff report SRCM.23.17 is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes with a recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Toniolo. And for the applicant, if you can just state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mayor West, members of council and members of the public. My name is Stephanie Quast. I'm a planner with Bousfields. So Bousfields has been retained by the owner to provide planning and urban design advice with respect to this site before you tonight. And as Freddie noted, the proposal is for a 14-story condominium building. As also Freddie said, the site has an existing approval from 2016. So since that 2016 approval, the planning context has changed in this area. A significant investment in public transit has been made by the province with the announcement of the Yonge North subway extension and the planned high-tech subway station, approximately 500 meters to the southeast of the property. The surrounding built form context has also evolved with the approval of the high-tech EMZO, which now permits buildings up to 80 stories in height. And the Richmond Hill Centre secondary plan has been adopted by council, approved by the region, although subject to appeals. So in light of these significant changes since the 2016 approval, the owner now envisions the site as redeveloping with a 14-story high-rise condominium building that appropriately balances the need to contribute to the intensification of the Richmond Hill Centre while maintaining and providing that compatibility with the adjacent low-rise neighborhoods to the west and to the north. So as I'll walk through the presentation tonight, we look forward to hearing your comments as well as those from the members of the public. Next slide. I'm going to skip through some slides because I realize I only have 5 minutes. So as you can see here, and as Ferdy noted, where the site is located, what's important to note here is that it is within that Richmond Hill Center, subject to that secondary plan. And as you can see that the transit located close by, the planned high-tech station, but also the Langstaff GO station, as well as the bus terminal that provides the Viva service. Next slide. And here a more closer up look, we call the site the West Block because the East Block there on the east side of Rosewater Street has been developed with two 15-story buildings, which are now constructed and occupied. And then just in the black outline there is the 15-story building currently under construction at 8888 Yonge Street. And south of our site is Sunnywood Park, in addition to that, which was included with the approval of the East Block there. Next slide. So here are a few photos taken earlier this year, Sunnywood Park. On the right side there is the recently constructed 15-story buildings on the East Block. And then the top left corner is the current under construction 8888 Yonge Street building. Next slide. So here, as Freddie said, the land use designations, we are within the Richmond Hill Center. And if you go to the next slide there, and there's the urban structure map from the official plan. And really, we all know the primary intensification area of the city is the Richmond Hill Center, which is intended to provide the greatest range of uses in a mixed use format that are transit oriented and concentrated around an integrated transit hub, as you see there. Next slide. And so here, this map, which Ferdy also put up, is the Richmond Hill Center, and we are within that west of Yonge character area, which is the purple. And so our site is seen as a transition area. And the policies within the secondary plan that speak to transition areas provide that they are intended to provide a transition in scale to the existing low-rise neighborhoods and sensitive land uses through stepped building heights, the use of setbacks or stepbacks, and separation distances. There is also a density limit provided within the secondary plan. It provides a range of 2 to 3 FSI. However, there is a policy that speaks to an increase in that subject to looking at the entire density of that character area. We have done that analysis. We have submitted it to the city, and it is now under their review. Next slide. And that's the existing zoning, which I'll skip. Next slide. And so here is a summary of the statistics for the building. What's important to note here is that of the 431 units proposed, over 30% are proposed to be 2 or 3 bedroom units. So providing those larger family-oriented units in this location. Next. Here's a colored version of the ground floor plan. So you can see the building, the units wrap around the interior courtyard. And the front entrance and the lay-by area is along at the northeast corner of the building there, with amenity area throughout. And I'll just ask you to...
If you want to just wrap up, your 5 minutes is up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you could just quickly flip through the next 2 slides. So I just want to point out, as the slides continue, as the building increases in height, the distance from the west property line there increases as well. And as you get to the 6th floor, as you see there, the corridor of the units is actually on the east side, adjacent to the existing high rise. So I'll just say, through the built form, we have been really keen and really conscious of providing an increase in separation from the residents as the height goes up.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so at this point, we'll turn this over to the public. We have 7 people, I believe. No, 10 people who are signed up, and then we'll go through those folks, and then anybody else that wants to speak is welcome to as well. So the first person we have is Frank and Marina Greco. Are Mr. and Mrs. Greco there? Oh, you know what? Geez. There we go. Okay. So Jack and Gwen Landold. All right. So folks, you've got 5 minutes to address council, and if we could kind of stick to that, that would be great. Just so you know, the first bell that you hear is a 1 minute warning, and then the second bell is your time is up. So Miss Landgold, welcome. Thank you so much for coming out.
All right, thank you. I'm here to represent many of the residents in the neighborhood, which is going to be affected by this development proposal. There is no dispute that this proposed condominium will be a detrimental change to the residents and to the neighborhood. I'm here tonight to ask council for a commitment. Specifically, I am asking the council to refrain from granting any discretionary allowances that the city has authority to deny. I would request a response on the following issues that arise with regard to this proposal. 1, increased density for this area has been put in place by the Ford government to make provision for a subway and high-density transportation hub that subway has not begun and will not be completed for many, many years. The question is, in the meantime, the entire area will have an increased population because of the condominium, and there is no infrastructure to handle in these long intervening years, either the traffic or public safety or parking. They're simply not being dealt with. The second thing is that this is going to develop the intersection of Yonge and Westwood Lane will simply become a traffic nightmare unless this is dealt with in this intervening period of time, at least. At the present, there is no proper transit, walking, or options. This must be addressed. Right now, it's difficult to use Westwood Lane. It's difficult to get in and out of Westwood Lane, but this must be addressed until you are in a condition that we are able to have the infrastructure to support this. The proposal calls for underground exit and entrance onto Westwood Lane. This will create enormous traffic, parking, and safety issues on that road. It is incredible that this is even suggested because it's impossible to get heavy 3 levels of parking onto Westwood Lane to exit and enter and to have it safe for the public. The proposed condominium is to provide 431 units in a building 14 stories high. This is in gross violation of an updated developmental, provincial, regional, and city requirements. This must be investigated and looked into. The proposed condominium backs directly, absolutely directly on the residential homes without appropriate transition for the neighborhood. These are critical issues that the council must address before any decision is made on this large condominium. But these concerns I would request, therefore, that these concerns be dealt with from the council and that you would make a commitment to deal with these issues prior to the change in our neighborhood. I realize under the legislation that the city council is limited in what it can do. However, there still is a role for the council to deal with issues. Even though you're limited, you still have a role to deal with it. This application cannot proceed before these issues are addressed by the council. So I repeat, I would request the council make a commitment to deal with these and other issues before any action is taken. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Landau. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. The next delegation that we have is David Zhao. Hello, David.
Yeah,
Welcome. You got 5 minutes to address council.
sure. My name is David. Last name is Zhou. Thank you so much for the mayor, West, and all the councilor here to support us. So basically, my presentation is the decision to the application. So here I'm to object the official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments application. I object based on the proposal, based on the GFA, density, height, and FSI. So yeah, next page, please. So we are in the land use in the neighborhood land use, and based on the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan, the proposed development land is in Richmond Hill Center area. So since it's in the Richmond Hill Center area, the proposal should conform to the official plan that currently have. So in the land use policies, 4.2 Richmond Hill Center and 4.2.1 land use, there's a saying that the median density residential should be permitted where the land above the neighborhood destination. I think that is definitely the situation. And the height should be progressively lower, less dense building at the edge of the Richmond Hill Center, so as to provide appropriate transition to the abutting neighborhood designation. Next page, please. And for the 4.2.2, the design, it says that linear parks should be established to provide connections within the Richmond Hill Center and abutting neighborhoods. I know that there's a park just beside it, but I think to make a good transition, another park should, it seems like needed for this transition. And it says that the proposed north local, so this part is in the north local street south of Carvalho Road, as shown in Schedule A8. And it says that for the west of Yang side, it's actually it should create appropriate transition to the surrounding existing residential neighborhoods, which I think is really important for this development. Next page, please. I think next 2 pages. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So the development should also demonstrate a transition, and development in transition areas show in the Schedule 6 to the secondary plan should provide a transition in scale to existing low-rise neighborhoods. Next page, please. Because now we have the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan, they should also conform to the maximum density that 2.5 FSR for the west side of Yonge Street. Next page, please. So in the 4.2.1, the 24, the edges of Richmond Hill Center Abutting to a neighborhood destination west of Young Street, the maximum FSI should be 2.5 FSI. So because the exception, there's an exception for that. So averagely, the total FSI should be 3.05. For this development, it should be, as the planner just mentioned, it should be only 2.6. For the Richmond Hills, so next page, please. For the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan, there's the next page, please. Yeah, thank you. So there's a maximum FSI for 3.0 for in the Richmond Hill Center secondary plan. Next, the 2-page, please. According to that, actually inside of the Richmond Hills Center secondary plan, there are 10.3.4. They said that the project here should not result in density above those permitted in Schedule 2. Otherwise, it should not be in a 45-degree planner. So to sum up, I oppose the entire proposal from changing in the zoning type, density, height, and all other changes. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, David. Okay, the next delegate is Nick and Areti Zourafis. Is Nick and Areti here? Okay. I'm really, really hoping I said your last name correctly. If I didn't, you can call me David East. It would be good payback. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to hear from us directly. Because of the time limitation, we more or less are not going to do a duet like we were planning. I have, okay, there are 2 slides. Can I request, therefore, I have condensed the presentation only on 2 slides. Can we please go on to the objections? This slide basically deals with the main objections that we have from the proposal, from the present proposal. The height of 14-story, the density of 4.82 or 431 users, and the massiveness of this structure virtually occupies the entire partial of the land. So it's not in accordance to any official plans, either the city or the region or even the Richmond Hill Center. Pardon me, I would say for this particular partial, the city plans and the regional plans. It does not provide adequate ethical transition to the abutting neighborhood. I hear the representative of the owner saying that they were doing us, that they had made provisions, and it's kind of very difficult to see those provisions as they were. The staff report, the staff did a wonderful review of the application and provided a report fairly detailed, and that's much appreciated. However, it did not make any final recommendations. It's essentially requesting the input from everyone involved. However, they made a number of issues that the abutting neighborhood transitions are not adequate. On the north side of the building, it violates the slope or the 14-degree elevations for the Westwood lanes. The residents across on the Westwood lane will essentially be blocked for many view or direct sunlight.
The traffic situation has been identified. Presently, there are only two of the three buildings under construction, and now this is the fourth one that we're considering. With only two of the buildings occupied, there are residents of those two buildings that are actively asking with written bulletins or papers of neighbors to rent on their property. They will pay in advance and so on and so forth because they do not have adequate parking within the existing facilities where they live. So when the third building, which is again extensive, comes into residency, the situation is only going to be worsened. And if this massive fourth building is considered for the area, it's going to be totally unbearable and totally impractical. The subway is not here yet and probably won't be here for many, many years. So that needs to be strongly considered, and we strongly object to the parking and the traffic, the congestion, and the noise that we have been experiencing. In addition, on the west side, there is a allowance for 10 minutes vertical before the slope, the 45-degree slope is applied. The existing residence, this is a monstrosity in front of the residence. So it needs to be looked at a little closer. It may be intended for where there's other buildings or roads, but not directly on R2 residence. I don't think that would be appropriate. So it's something that we ask that closely looked at. The loading bay and underground parking location, we object to it. It's going to cause, if there is no sufficient space, we feel, to come out safely, it would create gridlocks. Plus, it would be total eyesore to the residents. We recommend that be put on Rosewater Street. Actually, that's why that street is there for. So they should be accommodated by that new street and not directly off Westwood, which is already too much gridlock. The urban considerations, we don't feel are sufficient. We don't see any affordable housing accommodations. Next slide, please.
Your time is up, but if we can wrap it up.
Just one more minute, I will rush through it. The land parcel I want to focus is not on the main corridor of Yonge Street. It's on the second block, west of Yonge, over 120 meters away from Yonge Street. And it's directly on the neighborhood. All the plans require to have transition. Even the Richmond Hill Center requires appropriate transition to the surroundings. The MOB 8-story retirement home was probably authorized over the standard 4-story for this particular parcel because it was a retirement home. Everybody needs retirement. We're looking forward to retire from an input into the retirement home, but definitely we think it wouldn't have gone as far as 8 stories for a condo and a fourth condo. The outcome of this building is going to form a precedent for the area, and we ask that the council protect the city vision, principles, and their present objectives. After all, that's why your official plans were updated recently to meet the requirements of the intensification that was brought on by the provincial government.
Okay, so Nick, we
Therefore,
need
they should
you
be
to wrap up
respected.
this because we have a number of other people tonight.
I want to introduce on the record my submission, my written
Yes.
submission, and I'd like to request, and this submission identifies the consequences that will result as a result of this structure. And I ask the council that our commitment that our staff be engaged to follow up with these consequences and identify for the record,
Okay.
the adverse consequences, and not just
Thank you.
the input.
Okay,
Thank you very much
Yep, thank you.
for the opportunity.
Okay, Mujtabi Ebrahimi. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a good job on that one, did I? All right, you know the deal. You can,
So I'm not gonna go, is it okay if I'm not gonna go with the script? Because I pretty much, I have to
No, it's
say-
fine. Yep, go ahead.
So, we moved here like in 2020. I have a 7-year-old daughter. She was, before we used to live in Parkland and Lakeshore. And by bare eyes, by eyeglass actually, I saw I saw the area from going from very peaceful, beautiful area to the practically unlivable area. Just get out of the area by car. It took like 20 minutes after they make a lot of condo. I wish I could bring some of the picture there. So I'm seeing the similar things happening here. We moved here to 2020, so take a lot of time now getting to the Westwood, coming out of the area. Sometimes we just turn back and go through the Gardiner, the other street. So based on what I experienced there, I'm seeing similar things. So I wish, or I hope the council and the mayor just reconsider what's approved here. So I'm living very far from the building. I'm very corner. So most of the reasoning that the representative provide about the privacy is not applied to me. I'm just see what I saw before with the congestion, the effect on the school, the quality of the school is going to go down up with all these people coming. Comparing 8-story retired, which practically is like a free watcher. They just take care of the street really, because I used to live with one of this building. Beside them, they take care of the street, and you are replacing it with the like a lot of I don't know, new residents. They need a parking. They need the school for their kids, and this is definitely big impact in the area. That's pretty much what I want to say. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, and the last person that we have on the list is Jafar Nickel. Welcome, gentlemen.
Jafar Nickel, 22 Sunnywood, and Amin Nickel, 22 Sunnywood. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity to present our, points. Because a lot of materials, I'm asking Amin to go through that by reading that quickly, and we finish in 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi, Council. Hi, Mayor. We vigorously oppose the proposed development in its present form because of its excessive scale and intensity. Total disregard for blended transitional requirements to the abutting 60-year-old well-established neighborhood, single-family homes, that lack of urban living consideration, and as well as environmental considerations, and general lack of consideration for the existing well-established vibrant neighborhood. The proposed development has met the development's transitional requirements of the recently updated city of the city and regional development standards that were especially revised to meet the newly enacted provincial mandates. The 2016 OMB decision allowing the developer to build an 8-story retirement home building on the specific site with a maximum density of 2.64 FST in place of a maximum 4-story transitional building permitted by the city official plan is ignoring in this new 14-story 4.82 FST application. Furthermore, transitional requirements of the Richmond Hill Center for Transitional and Proper Built Form and Landscape to the abutting established neighborhoods have been also ignored in the applicant's application. The specific land considered in this application is not situated on the Yonge Street Main Corridor West Block. It is situated on the second westernly city block, well over 120 meters west of the Yonge Street on the west side of the Sweetwater Street, and directly on the neighborhood grounds. The specific subject land should be treated as an important transitional zone between the Richmond Hill Center designation to the east and the existing neighborhood designation to the west. The final city council decision on this property development will form the present for all future city developments abutting established neighborhoods. It will shape the city's future directional character, identify the principal treatment of its existing residents, and establish how its city's official plan and bylaws are treated by others. This is where the city council will make its mark for what it really stands for on and stake its reputation. We all hope that the city council will stand by and support its residents. Now, some highlights and the main objections. The proposed density of the 431 condo units on a 0.58 hectare property with a 4.82 FSI significantly exceeds the maximum permitted density of the 50 units per hectare in a neighborhood designation and the OMB 2016 approved density maximum of 2.64. The proposed height is conceptually not appropriate along the west side of the Rosewater Street, as such it fails to achieve an appropriate transition to adjacent and surrounding abutting low-density, well-established six-year-old neighborhood. The scale of the proposed is inconsistent with the city's objectives, visions, and principles as outlined in its recently updated development plans as it relates to height, density, and transition, and therefore compromises the city's ability to achieve its vision and developmental future objectives. There's an encroachment to the 45-degree angular plane along the Westwood Lane and the 10-meter initial height prior to the application of the 45-degree angular plane on the west side abutting the existing houses. Is strongly objected to as it provides a visual monstrosity to the abutting residents. This development abuts directly onto a well-established home. It does not back onto a street. The proposed underground parking to access directly onto Westwood Lane does not have sufficient spacing for the safe access and will create significant concerns and traffic obstructions on the Westwood Lane. Underground parking access should be provided off of the Sweetwater Street, preferably on the south end of the development. Building front spacing off of Sweetwater should not be compromised, and generally yard spacing and urban built for form requirements should be enforced as part of the proper transition to the existing abutting neighborhood and for the safe access and pedestrians and cyclists alike. Adequate parking spaces should be provided for the tenants and visitors for provisions of EVs. The subway is many years away from becoming a reality, and these developments should not met the requirements for proposed occupation timings. Presently, with only the smaller two of the adjacent new buildings occupied, the largest third building still under construction, the parking situation has already become unworkable. The situation is already so desperate that new building residents are actively soliciting rental parking on existing neighbor houses with payment in advance. The fourth proposed building would only make parking even more unbearable if it is permitted to be built for subway access that will not materialize for many, many years to come. There appears to be numerous deficiencies on the environmental side with storm water management, groundwater management, wastewater management, sanitary, and the like. Mature tree planting, landscaping considerations for appropriate transition to the abutting neighborhood must be enforced. General public and city services access appear inadequate. These should be enforced to reduce the neighborhood concerns. There does not appear to be any accommodation for affordable housing. The city should ensure that developers provide its proper share of affordable housing for the city at location that is considered appropriate and in demand. And one thing that I want to add is I've actually grown up myself in this neighborhood. I went to Charles Howitt, I went to Red Maple, and I went to Langstaff. I no longer live in this home because I moved in. My wife and I got married last year. We moved in together. My father and my mother now live there with my brother. The fact that all these condos are being built, whenever I try to visit my parents, it makes it a nightmare. And I see what it's doing to the residents. I see what's happening. And the developer's agent that comes by and her comment of saying, oh, we should be able to increase density because the subway's coming, because you guys have put in so much bus routes. Okay, so should my dad's 70-foot-5 lot be able to build townhomes on it now? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much,
guys.
And I'm a Langstaff alumni too, so that's a good job. All right. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak at this time? You're certainly welcome to. Come on up, sir. And everybody will have a chance. So if you want to just kind of get ready and we'll take you one at a time. So just if you can state your name for the record, sir, and then you've got 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Ernie St Denny. I live right in front of this monstrosity, actually. And one thing that I'm wondering, and I don't know if others remember this, I'm hearing about the 8-story retirement home. Nobody's talking about that 5-story seniors apartment that was supposed to go in adjacent to Westwood Lane. I thought that was approved. I don't know, but this to mention that there was 2 buildings involved in the past. People are talking about the subway. Okay, I'm all for that. I used to live right near where the Shepherd subway would have been built, and I left and came up here in 91. First time I heard about a subway being built here, that was when Dalton McKenty was running the first time for election. That's almost 20 years ago, isn't it? And we're building congestion right now. And because a magical subway is going to start all of a sudden. I've been following it. I don't think they still found the people that are going to be doing the drilling. They were supposed to be doing in November. They were supposed to be starting it up here to get down the core drilling machines, or whatever they call them. I haven't seen them yet. So I'm an engineer. I have to build on fact, and what I see. The other thing, when somebody says transition, this is not a transition. 15 stories down to 14 stories is not a transition. No, in no world would that be a transition. So I would like them to make it clear that we're trying to put as much as we can on there so that we can make as much as we can. And who cares about that exit right now, which is not going to be safe? Who cares about it? Because there's only one house that's going to be getting headlights constantly in my front window. How am I going to get out of my driveway? Oh, there won't be that many cars I'll probably hear. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of my driveway because if everybody's exiting. Now, I just came to this right now. Yeah, so I do object to that exit, and I think it should really go on to Rosewater itself. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, sir. Welcome, sir. Come on in. Yep. Name and for the record.
My name is Nasbar Sun. I live in 10A Westwood Lane, exactly in front of what this proposal is being considered. My question is, why you call this land 8868? Just a question. Because the owner is the same person which owned the whole lot. But this person has built or sold something, 3 high-rise building and built a road between the one in Young and the rest of Westwood Lane. Then it's cut off. It's a new land. And it has nothing to do with Young. When you say 8868, it means a part of Young, but not anymore. My neighbor here has a land, 11 Westwood Lane, which is exactly next to this building. But then, according to anything, it's 9 Westwood Lane. You are just planning to build a 14-story building in 9 Richmond Hill. Nothing to do with Young, because there is a separation, a cutoff with a road. 6 high-rise building it was built, and it has nothing to do with Collective. Collective sold those things and has a part of a land which is part of Westwood Lane. And if my neighbor in 11 Westwood Lane bring a proposal or application to build a 14-story building, do you consider his application? Why you consider 9 Westwood Lane and build something like 14-story building? If I share this land with Mr. Paul, and together we want to build a 14-story building, bring it here, proposal, you just laugh at us that we cannot build something in the middle of the road. It's part of Westwood Lane and Rosewater. Just by using 8868 and you can, or he is eligible to do this thing, it's just not fair and is illegal. Because I repeat what I say because I have difficulty with English, but my mind still works. It's not, it's just 9, this number is 9 Westwood Lane, and they are applying for building this high rise. How can you connect these to the young? If you can convince me, I go and sit and apologize from what is happening. It's just not fair. Somebody had a lot of land built and the remaining was cut off with a road, which belongs to those 3 condominium and building. If just you can convince me and tell me that I am wrong and don't understanding the rules, regulation, just because the name of the owner is the same. Just that.
Okay, no, thank you. Okay, next person. Welcome, sir. Just a name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Walsh at 11 Westwood Lane. I was here in 2016 when this developer first began to offend the community and the council in their work. Right now, I would say that we're looking at a proposal here that quite frankly is an assault on the community. When you look at the details of what's being asked here, you're asking for the people of Young West to take ownership for 20% of the development in the entire Richmond Hill area. I don't know if you realize that. And put it into perspective once again, that's going to be somewhere in the area of 1,300 units. And at no point at any time where you are required to have 300 units and a designated hectare of parkland, at no time have you ever heard any reference or notation towards parkland from this developer. In fact, this developer holds your official plan in absolute contempt. It's there to be ignored. It is there to be bypassed. And basically, whatever happens is that let it happen because we're here to develop it in a manner which we can expedite and profit from to whatever extent. Why am I here? Simply stated, is for you to, in fact, support us in rejecting this proposal for what it is. It is a monstrosity that is going to be grotesque within our community and is going to wreak havoc and destroy the community. Secondly, I would ask you to send a very clear message to this developer. You don't walk into Richmond Hill, disregard its council, disregard its residents, disregard its people who have lived forever as if this council, its planning team doesn't exist. I don't know what has gone on here, but in truth, what is happening is Richmond Hill Center is being moved over to Young West. And the only thing the developer hasn't asked is let's move to bus terminals with it. That's the only thing that hasn't been included. I could take on a lot here, but I'm going to focus on one thing only, and that is density. Right now, they're looking at a density of 4.8 FSI. Now, I've done the math on this in a couple of ways. Sometimes it's 400% greater than what is intended. And in other cases, it's 1,400, depending upon how you do the math. Either way, when you move from a density of 2.0 or 2.5 to 4.82, that is an enormous, extravagant, and exorbitant application of that. I want to put this into perspective for you. I live on a property right now that is 90-foot frontage, 180 feet deep, and we have built a 4,000 square foot home that has housed 7 children. we have been abided by the current zoning and density limit. If you were to extend that particular principle to there, you'd now have probably 3 or 4 additional dwellings on there, maybe 300 or 30 people or so, and the density, and that would be along a footage of about 190 feet. But now let me apply collectives, high density to that. They are asking for 431 units on a 1.4 acre property. That is 3 times the size of my property, or my property is 1/3 that. Now, were I to take their standard and apply their principles to mine, I'm now building 144 units on my lot. Now, if that doesn't strike you as being absurd, the only one, well, I won't go any further than that. The point that I would make, and I'll jump immediately to the fact that what are we asking you to do? We're asking to follow your predecessor in 2016, reject this proposal outright. Number 2, when you vote resoundingly and unanimously that this is not going to fly in Richmond Hill, that sends a clear message to collective and every other developer that walks in here and chooses to disregard you and pretend you and we do not exist. Thirdly, I would hope that the council would challenge every and single anomaly or violation that is in this proposal. In other words, take it where it goes and go to the map, because that's exactly the only thing that these people will understand. I would also expect, as they have in the past, they will go to the OLT. Why? That's what they do when they don't get their way. So therefore, I would ask you to anticipate, prepare every legal and oral argument that you can to combat with what's going on. Your official plan says that any development here has to be the right fit. This is an abuse. This is such an eyesore that even the lamest among us could understand that. I would also hope that at some point in time, you have amended your secondary plan to allow a 10-meter rise along the property line. That's my property line you're talking to. What I would like you to do, if in the secondary plan that can be adjusted or modified, get it back down to my fence line, the bottom of it. So that in actual fact, it's a real 45-degree angular plane. Finally, I would say before I go, is that you already have the precedents. There's 8 stories on Westwood, on Young. The new property coming in is also 8 stories. And you also have the OMB 216, formerly who allowed for an 8-story retirement home. The precedence has been set. All we're asking you to do is do everything in your power, not only as a councillor, but if this building was going into your backyard, you please take that to the mill when you go to vote. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. Okay, next person, please. Come on up, sir. You know the routine. Name and address.
Hi, my name's Gary Stevenson, and and my wife Barb over there, we're both the owners of a 30 Westwood Lane property. Yeah, we've lived on that property since 1976. We bought the house back then and raised our family up in there. My kids went to Charles Howard Public School, library that opened up after we got there. It was really enjoyed by my kids as well. Now, whenever I'm on the property and I see the traffic going by, as well as across on Pearson and the sidewalk attendant, the attendant trying to cross the people on the corner there is trying to stop cars that go through the stop signs. There've been quite a few tickets given to motorists that drive along Pearson Avenue because they're trying to bypass the traffic on Yonge Street. So Pearson is turning into a major problem. And with this new building going in, if that's the case, everybody will not be trying to get onto Yonge Street through the light because there'll be a lineup of 20 cars that won't be able to get onto the street. They'll be turning left and going to Pearson and endangering not only the kids at the public school, but all the library kids as well, and the whole community itself. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. And,
thank you, sir.
Please cancel this whole project.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else would like to speak? Come on up, sir.
Good evening, Mayor West, Bill Lucas, 37 Sunnywood, here with my wife. Councillor Slivets. Couple things. I'm writing on some assumptions, I think, here. In 2016, this parcel of land was included into the new high density parcel that is the entire subject that we're talking about, correct? An exemption request, I believe, was made in 2016 to further develop this to the FSI that we're talking about today. Correct. Is my assumption correct that that exemption should have been made to the town first before going to the OLT? Would the developer have had to make an exemption request to the town?
Okay, sir, this isn't really a
It's
back and
just-
forth, but
I get it.
it's
I
all,
get it.
it's
Thank
all
you.
part of the process, right?
Understood.
So,
Thank you,
yeah.
Mayor. Councillor Slivets. So the town, I just wanted to lay that out. The town would have facilitated this conversation first. Number two, just for order of magnitude and scale. Anyone here know how many parking spots sit in Hillcrest Mall? 2,631. If we look at all three buildings that are sitting at the top of Sunnywood and on Westwood, there are roughly 1,200 parking spots in play with the addition of the 438 that we're talking about. It's close to 50% of Hillcrest Mall sitting in this small little parcel of land with one laneway to enter and exit from. Just order of magnitude and scale to consider, please. Number three, what is the town doing to enforce or encourage the use of $1 billion investment down Yonge Street, public transit? If the building goes up, don't give it any parking spots. Force the residents to use your investment, your agreement to have public transit run down the middle of our South Richville area. The proposed subway system that's coming, get them used to it, get them using it. Because those buses, I know there's studies. I see on average 10 people on the buses per day. There's a lot going on here. There's probably a 25-year plan, which we heard in 1972. I've been in the neighborhood that long. The subway's been coming forever. Hurontario Street in Mississauga is a case study. 4 lanes each way down that thoroughway, massive towers, great transit in place before any of those towers went up. Nothing exists like this south of Yonge Street, between here and Finch, maybe with the exception of some stuff on the east side that has been there since the 1980s. So this is an anomaly. I understand that development is in play always. Consider the natural footprint, consider what's been here, consider what you want this place to look like. Keep us happy. Work for us. Make it a neighborhood that we still want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Nobody else? Going once, going twice? Okay. So at this point in time, we'll bring it back to council for comments, and this is a Ward 5 location, so we'll bring it to Councillor Slivets to get us kicked off. And Councillor, I presume you will move a motion to refer all comments back to staff.
I will definitely move the recommendations and all comments back to staff for their consideration. Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking from your hearts, because I agree with you 100%. And that's not just a political statement. It's a statement because I'm also a resident. I also drive up and down Yonge Street. And yes, Westwood is a nightmare. So there's a lot to say here. I'll get a second round if I need it. With regards to, I just want to bring on a few points here. With regards to the exit, egress and ingress from Westwood, that's because of the region. The region will not allow anything to go onto Yonge, exit and enter from Yonge. So that's the reason why we have what we have today. And it's highly unfortunate, because I do agree with you that any addition that is assumed to be this size added to what's already there is going to make that intersection at Young and Westwood undrivable. I absolutely agree with you. The word that was used the most here tonight is transition. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think I said that at my residents meeting last week. And by the way, thank you for attending the residents meeting, and to Regional Councillor DePaula and Councillor Thompson, thank you very much for attending. There is no transition here. You have a 15-story buildings on the corner, and then you have a 14-story building on the next to it. Why is it 8868? Because that's how it is given a municipal address. It is one block, and it's divided into those three numbers. But I agree, it's facing onto Westwood. It's not facing onto Young. So I've had discussions with the developer, with the applicant, as I have with our staff, and that word transition, I think, should be burned into the brains of anybody who is attempting to do what they're attempting to do here, with all respect. Because there is no transition. You are not going to what was supposed to be an 8-story building. And yes, as of right, you can put in another application, and as of right, you can appeal. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, just before I continue, I want to go back to Mr. Toniolo. Right at the beginning of your speech to us, your introduction to us, you said something that I wasn't aware of. And I just want to make sure that I heard that correctly. You said that this applicant collective is one of 2 developers so far who have appealed the Richmond Hill secondary plan to the OLT. Is that correct? Did I hear you right?
That is correct.
Okay. So, okay. So we're already before the OLT here, before we've even done what we're supposed to do here. But as your council and as your elected officials, we will most definitely fight for you. And I will fight for you the same way as I fought for you back in the early 2010s when I stood up and I spoke for you at the OMB hearing. Nothing has changed. Nothing. In fact, I'm even more so. The appeal body is the OLT. Used to be called the OMB, now it's called the OLT. That's the appeal body. So when an appeal is made, it doesn't come to the city, it goes to the province. That's how it works. They are a quasi-judicial body who hears appeals to legislation made by the province. Just looking at my notes here, give me one moment. David, you spoke so well. Thank you very much. And you spoke so well at the residents' meeting as well. You nailed it, 100%. It's all about transition, height, built form, and massing. No question. That's what it boils down to. And what we have in front of us is what I have said repeatedly throughout my 9 years as being a councillor. This is, instead of putting a stamp on an envelope, this is putting an envelope on a stamp. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work here. And I'll come back for a second round because I still have a few things that I want to say. But you have my commitment, without any question, that as your councillor, as your ward councillor, this does not get my approval as it stands. And unless something drastic happens here, it will not get my approval at any other meeting. I'll come back for a second round.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Through you, the chair, I'd like to thank everybody who came out to speak this evening. I'd like to thank the presenters for presenting the application as well. And I certainly want to thank staff for their report, because much of what we've heard tonight from the delegates is in the report. Staff have actually identified all these things. It's just a host of things that have not been addressed properly in any way, shape, or form. I would assume that the applicant is certainly aware of that they certainly have a long way to go. What I find disturbing is the whole OMB, OLT thing. And it seems to me we go back to 2014, and at that time, even the OMB did not approve the West Block. You know, that yes, Yonge Street, they said was fine, but there's just no way we can approve the West Block. So it seems to me that negotiations went on for a while until January of 2016, when it came back to the OMB, and that was approving the 8-story retirement building. And I agree with the delegate here that, you know, this may have just been a segue to get to where we are today. It is an assault. Quite frankly, I find it offensive. And the whole thing with the secondary plan. I mean, you look at where we are today, and it says, you know, with the secondary plan that we're looking between 2 to 3 FSI for this area. And they're coming in and saying, this is just how I'm looking at it, is they're going, well, crap, we've already got that. We've got 2.64. We better go for 4.82. I'm sorry, but that's how I see this. I see this as being deliberate, and that, yes, it's been offensive to us as council, to all our plans that we put together. Yes, I'm as angry as Councillor Silovitz is about this whole thing, and I quite frankly find it disgusting, and I recognize that I'm starting to get too emotional while I'm talking, so I'm going to cut it off there. There are a couple of things, though, I would like to mention, and I don't understand this. I didn't recognize that in the secondary plan that we had this 10-meter vertical plane before we hit the 45-degree angular. That's a 33-foot wall that's going to go right up and, you know, right there, right beside. Before we start looking at 45, I think we need to go back and start looking at that and maybe make an adjustment to that secondary plan. Again, I'm really confused. I thank Councillor Silovitz for the residents meeting. It was very enlightening. Again, I'm getting too emotional and too upset, so I'm going to stop right there for now. Pass it on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Next one is Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the delegates coming out to safeguard your quality of living that you deserve. My first comment on this application is quite similar with one of the delegates, which is about timing. Considering that the Yonge North Subway extension is scheduled for completion in 2031, if in case the application for this subject land is approved, my concern is if the road infrastructure will be able to handle the increasing population before the high-tech subway station becomes operational. How long would it take for a building to be constructed usually? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Is the construction timeline set for completion before the subway station in operation? Most likely. So that's what I'm concerned about. If the applicant just tell us, okay, my building will be built 10 years later. Okay, that's another story. But the situation is, it seems not to be like in that situation. Because there are so many applications coming in to apply for the land use amendment to make it as a KDA or just make the FSI so dense with that. So that's my concern, not only for this application, but the other application following. So that's my concern about the transportation. I do believe that it's not the right timing to accept so many applications before the subway in operation. That's my concern. My next comment is on the east side of the subject land, there's a mixed residential commercial land with the 3 15-story buildings, right? One of them is under construction now. And there's 2 of them. The name is East Block, right? Is there any recent update on the East Block? Is there any schedule when the East Block to be built? That's my question.
I think
for the chair,
it's being built and built. Parts of it are already built and parts of it are being built. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's correct.
Okay, clear. So this will be a nightmare. My another question is: are there any other developments expected in the surrounding area of the subject land?
Well, it's on the corridor, Councillor. So I mean, yes, there will be a number of different properties up and down Yonge Street that will be developed at some point in time. That's what the official plan is calling for.
Yeah, and also there are so many developments coming following at the east side of the Yonge Street. That's in my word. So we share the same nightmare along Yonge Street. That's my concern, because this is not the only building. This application is not the only building to be built, okay? But there's be a lot more coming within this area before the subway station becomes operational. That's my concern about this. So I always concerned about the timing. Why the applicant to make amendment for the land use so early? So early. I'm just concerned about the timing. Maybe I will leave the rest in the second round. That's all about in the round one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank all those that came out tonight to express their opinion. This is a wonderful neighborhood, and it really is a shame that there isn't a proper transition being being considered here. We have a drastically changed planning environment that we're working with today, as opposed to just 3 years ago, and it's detrimentally impacting this neighborhood. There's no question about that. I was the ward councillor for this area when there was a townhouse development behind a condo building on Yonge Street at Yonge and Edgar. And we, as a community, we were successful in insisting that it be single family, and that was upheld. And that's how much things have changed just since the early 2000s for this neighborhood. But the provincial government has issued a directive to the city of Richmond Hill. We have to have 27,000 units built and occupied by 2031, which is likely before the subway will be built. And it's unlikely that east of Yonge Street there's going to be any significant development within that time frame. So we are really under the gun, and we're not being fooled by the municipal address here. There was a line drawn, and this land falls within the Richmond Hill secondary plan for density, and on the Yonge corridor and within the catchment area of the Yonge subway. Now, I really want to congratulate efforts of our staff, the local councillor, Councillor Silovitz, and what we've done in terms of our planning to protect the west side of Yonge Street. And it might not seem like that when you're facing a proposal for a 14-story building, but the other side of the street has up to 80 stories, and we have to make a planning argument that can be sustained and upheld, under appeal at the OLT, as to why within this subway catchment density area that the province has dictated that it has to be high density, and the region has dictated that it's a major transit station area with density requirements that have to be met. And there's a lot of work done into protecting the west side of Yonge Street, into allowing for a much lower density and heights that in acknowledgement of the existing single family residence there. And it's not possible today to defend 5, 6, 7, 8 stories like what was even approved by the OLT just 7 years ago. So all these changes have taken place since the announcement of the subway and that investment in that transit infrastructure. There is this impetus on us. So I sympathize with the concerns. I think the transition argument within our secondary plan is what we need to lean on, and to hold to those principles. To if we are going to contest what's on paper or get some sort of a compromise from the applicant, it's to the wording surrounding a decline in height and density from Yonge Street toward the neighborhood, because that's not what's happening in this plan. Now, Mr. Mayor, through you, if I could ask to the applicant if they're available, if there wasn't any unreasonable delay, either if you were approved either by this council or by the OLT, is there every intention to build right away and to have occupancy by 2031?
We don't have the owner here. It's a planning consultant. Do you have an answer for that? Okay, well, come on up and speak into the microphone. Just a brief answer. I mean, it's really fairly binary.
Yeah, I am the planning consultant. I don't know the owner's financial performance.
Right.
But I will say many of our clients are concerned about the high interest rates right now and other factors within the housing community. So timing, as far as I know, is unknown. So I'm sorry, I don't have an exact answer.
That's fine. That's fair. Thank you.
That is fair. That is fair. And it just speaks to the fact that we're forced to create something that we have no control over. We can zone property, but we can't build buildings. So it's a tough position that the city's in. But we have to have 20 buildings like this per year to meet those targets. So that's where we stand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. I'd like to say, number one, I want to thank all the residents who came out tonight in the council chamber, particularly, I believe, 10 people, delegates who came down from where you're sitting to speak to all of us. As well, we got quite a number of written submissions. For that, to me, is a reflection of this community. I would say a mature community that really galvanized by this proposed development, which they all come out to object. Number two, in addition to what my colleagues and the 10 delegates and written submission are saying, that summarize in the end a few subject matter. We talk about density, we talk about the height, we're talking about traffic, we're talking about the parking. Of course, I will come back to transition later on. My colleagues and number of delegates mentioned about this is the Richmond Hill Center. Richmond Hill Center has gone through in this city, in Richmond Hill, lots of extensive consultation. And actually have been approved not only by our city, but by York Region. I do understand the applicant, as mentioned earlier, is one of the, I believe, two parties that are actually appealing that. So let's remember that. And there's something that I strongly believe that the strong showing of the community. And so far, I heard my colleagues, I did not hear one up to now to say, yeah, go for it, meaning for the application. I think it should be a strong message. The applicant, I know the owner is not here, the planning consultant, please take it back to the applicant. The level of opposition, the interest of council, based on what I've been hearing from my colleagues, is not there. Go back to the drawing board, please. And just to mention in particular, I think a number of delegates said it well, is the excessive scale at the magnitude. You compare to what it was permitted by OMB just 7 years ago. Much has been said about FSI. Anywhere that go by 2.64 to 4.82, no matter how you cut it or see it, the magnitude is excessive. There's two consistent words that draw my attention when I read the report throughout, which is nicely done by the staff, pointing out all the issues. Significant. Significant in what sense? The significant in terms of exceeding what's permitted, significantly beyond what's we allow. And the other word that I have been keep seeing is inappropriate. Inappropriate here, inappropriate there. Look at particular page 9 to 11. It's everywhere. So those words from our staff, they are professional planners. They look at it, based on the professional knowledge. And I honestly think that the west of Yonge, this particular mature neighborhood, its character are not to be compromised. And it's also shown, recognized in our Richmond Secondary Plan. So at the end of the day, I can see this is a nice architectural drawings and all that, but it's in the wrong place. It's not in a transitional area. It's supposed to be. Now, the last couple of points I would just mention raises concern. Is concern raised by our engineers about dewatering. And I think that's something that the applicants should really look at carefully. The other thing is about talking about the wind assessment. You talk about there are already 2 towers on Yonge, and now if you have a 14-story, if ever approved, the kind of wind impact and tunnel that may be on a number of things. And we're talking about angle plane and the shadowing and all this. And I think those really have to be carefully looked at. In the end, this application, Mayor said already, we are not for approval tonight, but I think you can sense everyone here, based on the my audits, is not going anywhere in terms of any chance of being approved as is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tree, you're next. Actually, this motion has not been seconded, so I'm sensing that you might want to do that. Okay.
Sure, I'll do it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to summarize a little bit. So first one, thank you for applicants, also our city staff to come here, especially for our residents from Ward 5 to come in the chamber in person. So welcome to be here. I heard a lot of back and forth discussions and good suggestions, ideas as well. I just want to make a very simple summary here, what I got. So angular issues, transition issues, density issues, affordability issues, because 10% of the house has 3 bedrooms. Based on affordability requirement, we only have 5%. It's far beyond there as well. Parking issues, traffic issues, infrastructure issues, public transit issues. You can summarize many concerns from different angles. So I have maybe 2 points here I want to mention. For city in the past, we already approved on the 21,000 units. We are waiting for some buildings being built up, but unfortunately there are 21,000 buildings. We approved, nothing happening. This is the one example. We approved or OMB approved around 8 years ago, but nothing happened. So from one side, we are complaining. A lot of applicants complain city is really slow and you don't do any works. But other side, you can see this is really double work for this case, right? Resubmission of different applications is going to be the resource consuming, going to be the time consuming. Yes. So I would say this one, maybe my personal suggestions. So when we submit something, turns out with city, your local councillor, turns out with your also residents to make a win-win situations. This way, you save your time, you save taxpayers' time. Also, you save a lot of efforts from city councillors and also planning department. The second thought I'm here is around sunset clause. I think our Deputy Mayor Godwin Chan brought this one a long time ago. We approved a lot of things. The city does not doing anything, so we are delaying a project. We approved it. But the problem is wait for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, nothing being built up. So maybe it's better we can set up as a sunset clause in our approval. If you city approved, if you don't do any buildings, maybe 3 years, 4 years, your permission is being canceled. You have to do it again. This is maybe another way to get the proposal or the fast building proposals in place. We approve the things, we want some things being happening, not wait here 5 years later on, wait for the pricing jumping up again and come back to city to negotiate another different proposal. That is my 2 cents here as well. Regarding to this new proposal in front of us, I same as other council members, I'm not in favor of this plan at all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I want to say there's nothing modern about this. It's a big chunk of concrete in the middle of a lovely old neighborhood. And I'm wondering what 0.75 of a parking spot looks like. I think there's a lot of problems with this building, including looking down the road, how do people want to live? And it's not just the people that already live there that don't want a big building beside it. I'm looking at the plan. I see nothing here that's environmentally friendly or environmentally moving forward, dealing with climate change. I see nothing here that makes me think, boy, I really want to live there. And we can say there's going to be a subway, but I even have a problem with that because that's based on a 70-year-old idea that we're all going to walk to the subway, get on it and go to work and come back in the afternoon. I think COVID showed us more and more people are working from home. In the next 10 or 15 years, who knows, maybe many more. And a building that doesn't provide parking spaces for the units, I'm not sure how that's going to even attract people to want to live there. And I know that developers' prime objective, like any business, is to maximize profits. But I think there's also a social responsibility to make these dwellings livable and part of the community, not just dropped on the community. And like I said, I don't see any green spaces here. I don't see mention of amenities so that the whole community can feel part of this building. It's just sort of this thing that's going to be in the middle of the community. So I know it's not a binding request, but I really hope the builder will go back, not only consider the density, but the livability of this. Who wants to live in this? And who wants to live near this? We have to start thinking differently. I don't think people are going to have big 4,000 square foot houses anymore. Nobody can afford it. So these smaller places have to be livable and they have to be part of the existing community. And they have to consider climate change and all the things we're in for in the next 10 or 20 years. Those are my comments. I really hope we can take this back and come back with some new ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm the last speaker on the first round, so I'll just make my comments. So as anybody that lives in that area knows, this area is an area of intensification. There will be and is buildings going up in and around that area for sure. I mean, some of them are already there in the vicinity. The amount of money that we've spent on transit infrastructure and the amount that we're going to be spending in the future with the subway coming up is significant. And so in our official plan, generally speaking, there are areas like that area and along Yonge Street and different nodes where we're going to see significant intensification. And you know, the plan that was passed recently for that area, you know, part of that was not quite ideal. I mean, the government put an EMZO in place and you know, kind of changed what the city was planning on doing in that area. So it wasn't entirely in our hands to make a plan for that area. But I think that the plan that we put in place does represent a decent compromise between the things that we can control, the things we can't control, and the reality that we live in. But having said that, I think it is a good plan. It may not be perfect. It probably isn't perfect. But this piece of land in question right now is right at the very edge of the neighborhood. And this plan as it stands right now is, in my opinion, very disrespectful of both the plan that we've created and the transition zone between a higher density area and a lower density area. There's absolutely no thought given to that transition. And frankly, you know, with all respect, the OMB told you that too. And the OMB told you a long time ago that that wasn't appropriate when it was approved or when it came to council the first time. So, I mean, there's a number of issues and it's been covered very well, but that would be the thing that I would like to concentrate on. You said in your comments, the applicant said in her comments that you know, the context has changed a lot in this area. And it has to some degree, but in a lot of ways it hasn't. The transition area is still the transition area. The houses and the well-established subdivision in that area are the same. It's been that way for a long time. And that transition is still not being respected. So that really has to be looked at carefully before I would be in favor of anything like this. And this doesn't conform to the new plan. And I was very disappointed to hear that it doesn't conform to the new plan and the new plan is being appealed by your client. I mean, that is problematic in my opinion. And, you know, the problem to go further on this, I'm having a hard time not feeling a little offended by the fact that, you know, going to the Ontario Municipal Board, OLT, whatever you want to call it, chews up a lot of time and resources for our city staff. And if you've already gone to the OMB once, you're taking us to it, the OMB or OLT now again. I don't think the message is getting across. Like, we have a plan. And so follow the plan, come back with something I think probably you better start again. Come back with a plan that works. We have a fresh plan in place that we've worked very hard with lots of public consultation. Whatever that plan is what you should submit. We will be a lot happier. And, you know, we want to see the housing built. We need the housing. We have, as Councillor DiPaolo said, we have a housing target that we need to have to meet. And we need people in the development community to help us meet those targets, because we don't build the houses, we just approve it. But what we're also trying to do while we meet that housing target is build a community that we can be proud of, a community that's livable, and a community that has lots of different options for lots of different people. That's what we're trying to do. Building 14 stories beside a 15-story building and saying that that's a transition right butting up against a really beautiful established neighborhood, like, that's not it, right? So we need to get the details right here. This is, you know, I would like it if you could come back with a new plan. This will be the third try, but come back with a new plan that respects our new application, respecting the plan that we have in place, and then we can go forward and have a real serious conversation. Councillor Silvitz is, I appreciate the fact that you had another conversation with your community. I think this community is getting very good at having conversations about this kind of thing, unfortunately. But I'd like it to see us have a conversation starting at a place where, you know, we can actually have a conversation, because it's something that actually matches the fresh plan that we have in place. So those would be my comments. Councillor Silvitz, you said that you wanted to have a second round.
Thank you. Yes. Unless there's anyone else on council who wishes to speak again. Otherwise, I'll close it down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank all my council colleagues for their comments here tonight. And I think it's been made very clear to you, our residents, where we stand. Very clear. Same as it's been made very clear by our staff on this page of the staff report, page number 14, summary of key planning considerations. There are 7 bullet points. That's exactly where we stand and where you stand. So we're completely dovetailing with this. As somebody said, a resident said at the residents' meeting last week, we're not against development. And I've heard that many, many times. And we say it as well. We're not against development. We know that development has to happen, especially along the Young Transit Corridor. But what we are against is something that comes in front of us that does not represent good planning. Because that is what we as your council ultimately approve in an official plan and a secondary plan, good planning, guidelines. And unfortunately, these guidelines are not being respected as all, as the mayor said, because shockingly, this particular landowner has already taken our Richmond Hill Center secondary plan to the OLT in an appeal. And as the mayor said, we went through years and years of public consultation in order for us to get to that point. So it's all about good planning, and it's about good planning for the greater good. This is not good planning for the greater good. And I think we all know about what it means to be a good neighbor. We're good neighbors and we are responsible neighbors. And I really urge the applicants to take a look at that and think twice about it, because you're a neighbor too. You already have one building there with another one to come. The ultimate style and size and height and massing, we don't know yet. But I think it behooves you, and we've had these discussions between ourselves as well, to also be a good neighbor and a responsible partner. And I believe our residents have said that very clearly here tonight as well. So I think it was Paul who said, not on my watch, this is not going to fly on my watch. It's not going to fly on my watch. And according to what your council has said here tonight, with public comments under a statutory meeting of the Planning Act, this is not going to fly on our watch. There is a lot of work to be done here. And I urge the applicant to continue discussions, myself, with our staff, with our regional representatives and our mayor. And I will hold another residents meeting. I said that last week as well. We have to see what comes back here. And I will hold another residents meeting. I'll hold another one if I have to. I've done that before and I will do it again. And because I think in this particular instance, we need to make sure exactly where we are before anything comes back to council for any final approvals, which is a long time away. So I know that our staff will continue their discussions, and they will continue the discussions with myself. To collective, please have regard for what has been said here tonight. It's of the utmost importance. You are a neighbor and you are a partner on many levels. So please treat the established neighborhood with the respect it deserves, and treat our Richmond Hill secondary plan, which has been approved by this council and approved by the region, with the respect it deserves as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Councillor. So unless there's anybody else that would like to speak, Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I've calmed down. So I do want to apologize for, getting a little emotional earlier. I've been watching from my colleagues here, and particularly the mayor, on how he speaks, and had a lot to say, the same as what I had to say, but he said it much better than I ever did. So talking about disrespect instead of an assault and being offensive and all that type of stuff. So, I still have a ways to go. There's my, I've only been in this for a year, so, bear with me, folks. I do want to say just a couple of things, and people have mentioned this, and certainly the transition is a huge barrier here. And one of the things that, if I'm not mistaken, is that a transition going from high rise to neighborhood would have to be with a mid-rise. And it seems to me that 14 stories is not a mid-rise. So, you know, there's so many things that have to be looked at here. And there was another comment that was made earlier about approvals in excess of plans. So if we're going to approve something in excess of plans, if I was looking to do that, I'd be looking to make sure that we get something of benefit back. And right now, we don't see anything in regards to affordability. And as Councillor Davidson said, in terms of climate change and environment, you really need to start looking at those things if you're going to look for anything in excess of existing plans. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor then to be clear, this is to refer all comments heard from the public and from council back to staff. We have that moved by Councillor Sillivet, seconded by Councillor Tree. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. And one more item, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Davidson, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out tonight, and have a safe and good